Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for this talk. As Sridhar mentioned, today I'll be covering monetization strategies and industry best practices. Before I jump into this, I've got quite a bit of data, and I'm going to skip over a number of the slides because we're short on time, but I will be happy to share the deck with anybody interested. I'm the Chief Product Officer for the company. I wanted to start off and just share a little bit about myself, and then I'll dive into the key points and content. So my twin brother and I co-founded this company when we were in high school. We were just very enamored by the web, and we started producing content. After 10 years of kind of screwing around, we figured out how to make a business of it, and at one point, we were ranked the top 10 highest volume advertiser in the US, according to Nielsen. So we have some experience with digital media. The last few years, our content business transformed into an ad technology business based in Minnesota in the Midwest, where everyone said we could never do it. You need to be in San Francisco. You know, and it's only fitting that I'm following Google here today after flying 18 hours from Minnesota to get to India. But this is a great opportunity. I love being here, and I'm excited to talk with you about what we've learned. So the last few years, we transformed the company from a desktop ad tech company to a 100% mobile technology company. Our focus was a few years ago, we decided, we really felt that there was a space for a company that would build the leading native ad technology for games. So that's been our vision, and we've poured all of our resources into building out that vision the last few years. And recently, we've seen quite a bit of growth based on that positioning in the market. We've driven over 1 billion installs for our partners. We're mostly penetrated strongly in Western markets, although we do have supply across the globe. We work with 50% of the top grossing apps in the US when we did a survey of the charts. So we're directly working with Disney, Zynga, Machine Zone, all of these guys we've been working with for several years. And we built very strong relationships with them. Often we're one of a handful of companies that a lot of these guys run campaigns with or do monetization with. But also a lot of the independent game companies that have built several million monthly active users, Crossy Road, Temple Run, all of these guys, they have our ads. So our ads are primarily driven through our SDK, which is now seen by several hundred million monthly active users. We started off as an offer-wall provider, but have expanded to really focus on native ads with an emphasis on rich media and video. Again, for games, we felt that was really important. We wanted to be able to iterate faster on the ad units to deliver stronger results for games. So now, this is just a little bit about my background. You don't have to take my word for what I say about the company. VentureBeat did a survey of game developers, and for 2 consecutive years, it was Facebook, Google, and Nativex were the only 2 rated in the top 10 for user acquisition and monetization. So if you may have heard of that popular tech blog. So with my role as Chief Product Officer for Nativex, I lead the team that does the interaction design work, product management, and marketing. So part of my job is to really understand research, right? I talk with a lot of game developers. I attend a lot of industry events across the globe. And I'm here today to share with you some of those insights to help you. My goal for the talk today is to help you better set and achieve monetization goals for your game. Oh, that's my identical twin brother. He's the other co-founder. We try to look different. That's why I have a beard and he doesn't, because we're identical twins. But he's our CEO. So first, I think it's important. I'm a very passionate entrepreneur and involved in a number of startups. My brother and I have done 20 angel investments in the Midwest. Some very successful companies. I know there's going to be a ton of huge successes in India. I just feel this vibe, like big game companies are coming from India. I can feel it. And I think as I thought about this talk, it really got me thinking about the startup mantra. And I really believe firmly that your job at a startup is not completing projects. It is to ensure that your projects are successful. That's your job as a startup. And as a game company, there's obviously an abundance of games out there, so it's not going to be easy. But I think information like I'll share with you today, I hopefully can help you on your journey to be successful and not just release a game, because anybody can release a game, but you want to build, one of the top games. So the 3 key points today are, is your game making as much money as it should? What benchmarks and goals should you be aiming for? And what strategies can you adopt to achieve these goals? Is your game making as much money as it should? I think the business model is pretty typical. Your lifetime value needs to be greater than your cost to acquire users. Fairly straightforward. But cost to acquire users, there's so many games out there. You really have to have a game that's remarkable. And I'm going to share with you some data about some of the campaigns that we're seeing in our network. I kind of relate this to like a grocery store analogy. You go through a grocery store and there's thousands of products, right? But in every category, there's people that stand out. And that's what you need to do with your games. And we have great examples of this. And successful monetization is the marriage between acquiring users based on a compelling value proposition and then delivering enough value to compel your users to purchase or to watch ads. So again, very symbiotic here, lifetime value and cost to acquire users. That's how we build your business, so it's a smashing success. So of course, paid users, like Nativex is a paid channel, and then free organic users, I think you guys all know what this is, so I'll just breeze through this. But Nativex, we start off with an incented advertising product, and so we've sold incented installs. More than half of our revenue comes from the US market right now. I just wanted to share with you the rates. You can see here, rewarded installs, surprisingly, companies like Machine Zone, they're running incented campaigns with us. They have hundreds of campaigns running. These guys have figured it out. A lot of people say, don't buy rewarded installs. Well, you can buy them. You just adjust your bidding. You try to match the right audience for the incented inventory with the game and then back out the ROI. And people like Machine Zone are able to back out to affect the performance. But more common, people are buying incented installs. On iOS, it influences your ranking. Jay-Fifth from Yetizen will be speaking tomorrow. He's got a very detailed advice on how you can optimize your chart ranking. I would highly encourage you. He'll be in this room tomorrow if you want to learn more about bursting and achieving higher rankings on the charts, as well as showing up better for search keywords. This is the best presentation you'll find on that subject. And I've used, we do a lot of campaigns for advertisers that are seeking to achieve ranking. And in short, Japheth has the formula. Japheth, we have the case studies and data to back it up. We provide estimates. It's somewhat complex, so if you ask us, we'll give you a free report on how many installs you need by category or top charts overall for tablets or phones, by geo, by position you're trying to achieve, all of this. And what a lot of developers don't realize is that bursting, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to take a huge risk. You can start with a narrow market segment and test your game to see how well it performs when you achieve certain ranking in the App Store, and then go after the US market. And so this is what we see. Developers are still frequently using these incented installs, but enough about that. Move on to the next topic. So non-rewarded installs. Nativex, most of our volume on non-rewarded installs is being driven through video. So these are the numbers I have to share with you. I've never shared them before. You can see here in the US, it's average right now in our network is $2.50 for a non-rewarded US install, primarily driven through video, and $3 for iOS. But CPI, those numbers don't mean a lot to you. I'm going to move right along here. It's really, you got to think about your conversion rate. You're building products. How remarkable are your games for that particular audience? Are they going to find your games appealing? Ads just help, are useful for promoting your game, but no one's going to respond if they don't find it delightful and differentiated. And so too many analysts and bankers and media, I see it all the time, the rising costs of CPI, you can't do it, you can't do it. That is complete crap, because I'm seeing games all the time come out of left field. They've got an innovative concept, they're reaching an audience, they built their games for an audience, and they get dirt cheap installs, and they're even sometimes built on very popular game genres. So it can be done, and I think it's just I think the news in the industry doesn't cover that part of it as much. It's really understanding your audience and building good product. And I've got some data to back this up. So now the question here: what benchmarks and goals should you be aiming for? So game genre is a better proxy. I mentioned we can't look at all of Nativex's network of CPI. You got to break it down more, right? So I was able to get this from Think Gaming. It's a paid research service, great service. They gave this out to me on request, as long as I plugged them. So you can see in here, this is the ARPDAU that they're tracking on on the leading games. You can see that they're tracking between 4 cents and 15 cents average revenue per DAU. It's casino and the crime games that they show on the high end of that, closer to the 15 cents, and then shooters, sports, dress up, and racing are on the low end. I can tell you from my own conversations, the peak performance for ARPDAU, I've seen a casino game that achieved $1 ARPDAU, pretty amazing. I've seen, Clash of Clans and Heyday. There were some reports that came out that they published 2 years ago between the two games. Just doing the math, it was estimated they were doing 24 cents per DAU 2 years ago based on their reports. So that was Heyday and Clash of Clans. Average between the two. So ARPDAU, well, average revenue per daily active user. How do you figure out, so why is this important? Well, if you know your retention, how many days you're going to see a user with your game, you can multiply that by your average revenue per daily active user, and that's a simple way of calculating your LTV. There's better ways of doing it, but I just wanted to show a simple calculation. And so I've given you the ARPDAU on the lifetime values. I tried to get this out of Think Gaming, but I couldn't get them to give me that data, unfortunately. I tried. But I can tell you from my research, $3 to $10 LTV for the top grossing games is, I think, pretty typical. Of course, the games that are in the top 10 grossing that are doing on the lower end of that, they have far more users, or they wouldn't be in the top grossing. And here's some other data that sort of supports those are the LTVs. So if you know the LTVs, you know the ARPDAU, you can figure out what the retention rates would be. Of course, these there's any combination of ARPDAU or LTV or retention that will get you to those LTVs. So in Nativex, we run a lot of video campaigns. I just wanted to highlight 8 of the top game apps that we're running in our network. I list here, didn't want to show that, I wanted to kind of respect the advertisers' anonymity, but I gave you the platform, game genre, and game description. You probably can figure out who some of these are, but this is the average CPI rate they bid in our network on a global basis during the month of October. All of these were pretty meaningful campaigns. The conversion rate here is the installs per view, per completed video view. You can see there's 0.21%, but what I want to point out is the average is $2.40 for a video-based install through Nativex. 0.21% is the conversion rate. But you look at this, there's quite a range, right? You don't have to bid, there's as high as $15 we're seeing CPI rates, but as low as $1.50. In fact, that one that's $1.50, they built a product that resonated with consumers. They're actually spending more money with us than any of the other players on this list. So you can see there, we rank ads using predictive analytics. So we're predicting the conversion rate for every single impression using behavioral profiles of the consumer, as well as attributes of the device, the inventory, where's the ad served, and attributes of the ad itself. But I just I thought this was really interesting to see because it kind of contradicts what you hear. It's all about the CPI. You got to have the highest LTV, and it's just not. That's not what we see. Certainly, there's business with all of these categories, but I don't think people give a lot of credit to casual games and some of these other genres that is where I think credit is due. And if we went down our list of other ad campaigns, or top game, so you'd see a lot of the same as well. What strategies can you adopt to achieve these goals? I have the deepest understanding of advertising in games. I'm not a game designer. I've read a lot of psychology books and UX books, and there's people that cover games. But from talking with a lot of the game developers, including many of the top grossing games, I wanted to highlight a few of the case studies and kind of best practices. And so I've broken this down into 3 key points: placements, segmentation, and controls. Just real briefly, there's 3 separate studies that came out, all basically came to the same conclusion that many consumers prefer to pay for their game content with their advertising versus paying in real cash. And so there's quite a bit of research out there supporting that claim, and I think that one of the big questions if you're building a game, especially these top grossing games, is advertising, does it even belong in my game? And so I have some examples of actually top grossing games and how ads benefited them. What I actually found in a lot of my research, talking to some of the top grossing global games, is some of them don't run ads in the media. They're like anti-ads. You read them in their interviews, but if you actually go talk to the product manager who's responsible for managing that game, it's actually a prioritization issue. So typically these top grossing games, they might get 20 to 40% lift, and if they properly implement ads, but there's a risk if they don't do it effectively, they can cause more damage to their game and significant IAP revenues. And so the ones that there's some of these game companies I've seen, it's unbelievable how data-driven they are and experimentation-driven. These guys, for 20 to 40% gains, some of them will run any experiment they can think of. Whereas you have other game companies where it's much more, kind of based on best practices. They're not very data-driven, but they've still been successful they've figured out the basic game mechanics and so forth. So it's kind of all over the board, but. So strategic placements, this is basically a placement is just where in a game do you show ads. Typically, with 3 to 5 ad formats, we think you can maximize the different types of ad placements in your game. So what you want to do is you want to try to match the emotion of the moment with the ad unit that fits it. So every game is unique, and you'll understand the game experience better than any partner like Nativex could. But once you understand your user state of mind, then you set up different placements, and then with those placements, you can optimize them with different ad units. So with Nativex, you can see here some examples of how you might apply, or how we might recommend you apply the ad unit. So with a positive emotional state, such as a level completed, users will associate an ad with that positive emotion, and so non-rewarded ads do very well when that's reinforced, and you can get paid quite a bit for driving that positive impression to the user, right? Negative emotional state, users they want to get out of that state quickly, like level filled or P2P competition loss. So rewarded ads tend to do better there. When the user's in the purchasing mindset, so if they've exited the app, your store numerous times, or just after they didn't make the purchase, why don't you offer them an upsell to earn some currency, for example? And then lastly, a neutral state. These are tough. This is where Nativex we use predictive analytics to also select the right ad format to present given the placement. So in this case, we would experiment with both rewarded and non-rewarded ad units to try to figure out which ad unit in each of those placements. You get to choose which ad units compete, but in that case, whatever you have enabled will compete based on the predicted eCPMs. So rewarded or non-rewarded ads, just a case study. So one of the game developers we worked with, kind of more of a casual arcade style game, they had over 100 million app installs. Very popular game. This game had a pretty weak in-app economy though, in-game economy, and they generated 70% of their revenue from ads, but it was only just 50%. Most of that was non-rewarded ads. And only 30% on in-app purchases. I've seen this complete reverse, high grossing games with 80% IAP revenue and 20% like rewarded ad revenue. So if you think about that, depending how strong your in-game economy is, it should really influence the type of ad units you're using because the rewarded ads would generate that, much greater portion of revenue if the users value the extrinsic rewards. I'm going to skip this one here. One game developer released a study. They did an experiment and showed that with rewarded video, they weren't using it, and then they added a very simple rewarded video ad placement. They increased their session lengths by 25%. It's kind of intuitive if you think about it. Users are spending a little more time watching the video ads. Plus now they have more currency to spend in the game, so that 25% boost in session length is quite valuable to this developer. This is an interesting one. This is actually a very popular game. I won't name the game. I think it's pretty funny that they're still doing this, but this game has easily 1 million DAUs. This developer, they segment their users, and after, I think, a month, if you're not a paying user, they start showing after 1 month, they start showing a game on launch, either an autoplay video or a full screen banner. And this, the person responsible for the ad monetization told me that basically their performance was backing out essentially the same. Despite this, the video, the user can't close it for 15 to 30 seconds, and the full screen banner they can close immediately. They didn't factor that in at all. It didn't cross their mind apparently that maybe we should just show the interstitial ad. And so I think that developers, they believe, the perception is there that video should be earning me more money because it's a more engaging ad, but it's not necessarily the truth. And a lot of I've heard a leading video ad network say you should always run video ads, forget full screen banners. It's just, these kind of absolutes are always dangerous, and I just shake my head because I see that in the data when we have multiple ad units competing for placements, it doesn't work out that way. It's oftentimes having users, you need to, if you do the same ad every time, there's banner blindness kind of creeps in. You need to kind of vary the experience, and then they'll get it noticed, or they'll just get bored with it and start skipping your ads. So I think it's very important you want to consider best practices, but you also want to look at ways for your ads to kind of fit in with the game to get noticed. That's the biggest problem with advertising is, are your users noticing them? One of the things that Nativex, with Nativex's big focus is on the whole experience, but part of that is the design. So with each of the placements, we work with leading game publishers to help them tailor the game ad units to better fit with the placement. So character associations are common, varying the buttons and call to actions and so forth. And some of those simple changes, it's very common for us to see 30 to 100% lift in performance. And we built a system to help automate this. So there's shared assets and then there's customizable assets. We try to avoid customization when we can because the more assets that are standardized, the more we can do network-wide sort of optimizations. But for the larger publishers, it's worth definitely tailoring the presentation for those placements. And that's Nativex is we're really working with mid to large size game publishers as our primary market segment. So segmentation, Users are not all the same, so it's no surprise, that if you segment users, I think it was mentioned by the Google gentleman earlier, if you segment users based on their behavioral patterns with monetization, you can have a big impact. So a friend of mine was responsible for managing the monetization of it was the number, at the time in the US, it was number 15 grossing overall on iOS. It was an RPG game. He did a very simple optimization. He chose not to serve any ads in the game until users played the game up to a certain level, and then after that point, he started showing interstitial ads. Go one step further, he also, even though the ad networks he worked with targeted ads to be relevant for the consumer, he would restrict ad categories that he knew were not a good fit for his audience. And from these simple changes, he increased his LTVs by 30%, and this was a number 15 grossing game on the App Store. So it's just simple interstitials, and he didn't run them excessively. It was a limited quantity, but he took his non-payers and just started showing those ads. And you can get way more sophisticated than this, but this is just a very simple example of how segmentation can really help you increase your LTV. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but there's a lot of different controls. I think when you look at the ad technologies out there, those that are putting their controls in their SDK and not server side, big problem. If you want to do the kind of iteration and experimentation to really boost your performance, you need those controls in the server. For Nativex, some companies I think do a good job of this, but not everybody. And it's nice to be able to manage those, the ad units. So every time there's a UX change, things are evolving quickly. You don't want to have to update your ads in the game through reintegration because of that. So these are some of the controls that I just wanted to briefly point out. I mentioned earlier ad blocking and predictive analytics, making the ads personal. It's human experts combined with data science. Like we've got a world-class set of data scientists in the Bay Area. We hired one of the thought leaders in the search and advertising field to build up our team. But even then, we still have people looking at these games, looking at the ads that are coming in, and there's always cases where our staff beats the machines. And I think that a lot of people, it's great to have automation, but there's still, you guys know your audience is probably better than any machine ever will, and you should leverage both, and that's why I think it's really useful to have ad blocking controls, and I just wanted to make mention of that. I mentioned that in the case study earlier as well. Do you want to play the videos? So I went through this fairly quickly. I just wanted to close with a short video about a couple of short videos about Nativex, and then wrap things up here. Really our focus, we started as a content company, and it's become our focus. It's always been our focus with advertising to help our partners achieve their goals. We've done it before. One of the games, we're newer to video ads, but we grew significantly this quarter and the previous 2 quarters. We took one of the global games with 3 million DAU, and they were running one of the popular mediation services. We offered them a 20% CPM guaranteed boost over all of the mediated video products that they were running. And several months later, we're still running 60% of their tier 1 markets, all of their fill. This is a game you've all heard of. I won't mention them because we don't have their approval, but video ads done natively, done with these kind of considerations, you can get significant gains in performance. But for us, we didn't aspire to build similar ad units to other companies. We've been building up this capability for some time, and right now we recently started beta testing an ad unit actually just this week that I believe is going to triple the ad revenues in the game partners we're working with. We pitched it to 20 companies and had such overwhelming interest for it that we had to pull back. It was the first time I've ever in a beta had oversubscribed like interest in it. And it's very differentiated ad unit. And I think what's important, forget Nativex, it's all about understanding the user experience. I'm a big product guy. We studied games. We understand the user frustration with the games, and we built an ad unit that solves the user need, and it's going to make publishers a lot more money. And so I would like to be able to share with you what the ad unit is, but we wanted to, it's in a limited beta. If you're interested in hearing more about it, just shoot me an email or contact Nativex. Drop off your business card. There's more data in the case studies in here. I just gloss over a number of the slides. But that's all I have for today. I hope you all enjoy, benefit from this data. I hope it helps you achieve, runaway success with your games and your startup. Like I said, I'll be around. I'm happy to answer questions. I was hoping to do a Q&A, but we're really short on time here. So thanks everybody, and good luck with your games.